She came home early, smiling, carrying takeout for dinner. Then she froze at the doorway. Her husband wasn't alone. He was in a compromising position with her own father. For a moment, the world stopped. Then everything exploded. Within hours, 2 people would be dead, 1 in custody, and a quiet Ohio town would be left asking a single question. What could drive a woman to destroy everything she loved in one night? This is the story of Danielle Moore and the double murder that tore her family apart and left a nation searching for answers. This case is not just about betrayal. It is about secrets, identity, and the moment one truth turns love into rage. Danielle Moore was a 32-year-old nurse from Cleveland, Ohio. She was known for her calm smile, her quiet discipline, and her deep love for her husband, Michael. To neighbors, they were the perfect couple. 2 cars, a nice house, and a life that looked flawless from the outside. But behind those walls, something was building. A secret that would change how everyone saw them forever. Before we go deeper into what really happened that night, make sure you subscribe. We cover the darkest real-life stories from across America, and trust me, this one is unlike anything you've ever heard. Comment where you're watching from, because by the end of this video, you'll want to share your thoughts on what justice truly means. Danielle Moore grew up in a small town outside Cleveland. Her childhood was strict but warm, the kind where family came first, and loyalty meant everything. Her father, Charles Bennett, was a retired police officer, known for his tough discipline and charm. People respected him. To Danielle, he was her hero. When she met Michael, a young mechanic with a quiet nature and a steady hand, her father instantly approved. Michael was polite, hardworking, and seemed to love her with every part of his soul. Within a year, they were married in a small church ceremony, surrounded by friends, family, and laughter. But even in the early days, there were cracks. Michael would disappear late at night with vague excuses about helping a friend or fixing a client's car. Danielle ignored the signs, convincing herself that love meant trust. Her father spent more time with Michael than she did. They went fishing together, watched games together, even fixed things around the house together. Everyone called it a perfect father-son bond. But behind that bond was a secret neither of them could keep buried forever. It was a Friday night in late October. The wind outside was cold, and the smell of rain drifted through the air. Danielle had picked up Michael's favorite takeout, wanting to surprise him after a long shift. She parked the car quietly and walked toward the house, humming softly to herself. From the driveway, she noticed something odd. Her father's truck was parked beside Michael's car. That wasn't unusual, but it was almost 10 p.m., and her father hadn't told her he was coming by. She stepped inside, expecting to hear laughter or the sound of the TV. Instead, she heard whispers, muffled voices coming from the bedroom. One voice sounded like her husband, the other like her father. Her heart started racing. She crept closer, each step slower than the last, the takeout bag trembling in her hand. When she reached the door, she turned the handle slowly. It wasn't locked. The sight that greeted her froze her where she stood. The 2 people she trusted most in the world were in an intimate situation that shattered every memory she had ever cherished. Danielle dropped the food. Her mind went blank. Her body shook. In that moment, she felt something deep inside her snap. Not in anger, not in grief, but in disbelief so powerful it burned. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just turned and walked out of the room, leaving behind the sound of her world collapsing. Danielle drove for hours that night without knowing where she was going. Her phone kept ringing, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. The city lights blurred through her tears, and every memory of her marriage replayed in her head like a cruel film. By morning, she was parked near the lake where she and Michael had shared their first date. She sat there staring at the water, gripping the steering wheel so tight her hands went numb. How do you process a betrayal like that? From the man you promised your life to, and the father who raised you. She felt trapped between fury and heartbreak. Every breath felt heavier than the last. For days, she stayed silent. She told no one. She went to work, smiled at patients, and came home to a house that now felt like a stranger's. Michael acted normal, pretending nothing had happened. Her father avoided her calls completely, but the silence only made it worse. The anger started to build, the shame, the confusion, the feeling that she had been played by the two people who knew her best. And on the fifth night, something inside her finally broke. She grabbed her phone, sent one short message to Michael, and wrote another to her father. Both said the same thing: "We need to talk." It was late evening when Danielle asked them both to meet at the house. The air was heavy, the kind that warns you something bad is about to happen. Michael arrived first, confused but calm. Then her father pulled up, his face pale, eyes restless. They sat in the living room in silence. Danielle didn't speak for almost a full minute. Then she looked at them both and asked one simple question: "Why?" No one answered. Her father looked down at his hands. Michael tried to speak, but his words fell apart. Danielle's voice broke as she spoke again. "You both lied to me. You destroyed everything I believed in." Tears filled her eyes, but there was no softness in her tone, only disbelief and hurt. Michael reached out, trying to calm her, but she stepped back. "Don't touch me," she said quietly. Her father stood up, muttering something about mistakes and forgiveness. But his words only made it worse. To Danielle, it sounded like excuses, like neither of them truly understood what they had done to her. She screamed, not from anger, but from the kind of pain that feels like your chest is splitting open. Her neighbors would later say they heard the cry from outside, a cry that didn't sound human. When it was over, Danielle walked into the kitchen, her hands trembling, her mind blank. What she did next would change 3 lives forever. The kitchen was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Danielle stood still, staring at the counter where a small knife rested beside the cutting board. Her hands were shaking, her breath uneven. Michael followed her in, his voice soft, trying to reason with her. "Danielle, please, we can talk about this," he said. She turned, eyes red, body tense. "Talk about what?" she whispered. "The lies, or the betrayal?" Her father stepped forward, raising his hands as if to calm her, but his presence only fueled the storm inside her. The room spun with memories, birthdays, Christmas dinners, the day Michael proposed with her father sitting right beside him, smiling proudly. In that instant, Danielle's grief turned into something darker, a rage she couldn't contain. She grabbed the knife and lunged forward, her screams echoing through the walls. Michael tried to block her, but chaos took over. Chairs fell, glass shattered, and within seconds everything was drenched in silence. By the time neighbors heard the noise and called the police, it was too late. Officers arrived to find 2 bodies on the floor, one near the kitchen table, the other by the doorway. Danielle was sitting against the wall, covered in blood, staring at nothing. When an officer asked her what happened, she simply said, "I just wanted them to tell me the truth." That night, Cleveland police recorded it as one of the most disturbing domestic crime scenes they had seen in years. When officers entered the house, they moved carefully, unsure if the suspect was still armed. The living room lights were still on, and the smell of iron filled the air. Danielle didn't resist. She was sitting on the floor with her knees pulled to her chest, whispering the same words again and again. "They lied to me." Her voice was calm, almost childlike. The detective who first reached her said she looked more broken than dangerous. They handcuffed her gently, led her outside, and placed her in the back of the patrol car. Neighbors watched from their porches in silence, shocked by what they were seeing. The woman they knew as kind, polite, and quiet was now the center of flashing red and blue lights. At the station, she said very little. She answered every question with short sentences, showing no emotion. When detectives asked why she did it, she simply replied, "I lost everything in one moment." The police gathered evidence, took photographs, and sealed the house for investigation. Inside, they found the knife, a smashed picture frame of Danielle's wedding day, and a handwritten note on the kitchen counter that read, "I believed in you both." That single note became the piece of evidence that would define the entire case. Detectives worked through the night trying to piece together what had really happened inside that house. The evidence was clear, but the motive was buried beneath layers of pain and secrecy. They traced phone records, text messages, and emails between Michael and Charles. What they uncovered confirmed what Danielle had seen. It wasn't a misunderstanding or an accident. It was a secret relationship that had been going on for almost a year. Messages showed that Charles had encouraged Michael to keep everything hidden from Danielle, afraid the truth would destroy their family. But that fear only made the eventual discovery more catastrophic. Friends of the family told investigators that Danielle had been showing signs of emotional breakdown weeks before the murders. One coworker said she looked haunted, as if she was carrying something too heavy to share. When police analyzed her mental state, they found no prior record of violence or instability. She had no criminal history, no history of substance abuse. To them, it looked like a sudden eruption, a moment where heartbreak turned into irreversible tragedy. The prosecutor called it a crime of passion. The defense called it an emotional collapse, and the media called it something else entirely. The secret that shattered Ohio. The story spread across national headlines, dividing public opinion. Some saw Danielle as a monster. Others saw her as a woman pushed past her limit. The trial began 6 months later, inside the Cuyahoga County Courthouse. Every seat was filled. Reporters, family members, and strangers who had followed the story online wanted to see the woman behind the headlines. Danielle walked in wearing a gray sweater and no makeup. She looked exhausted, her eyes heavy, her posture fragile. When the judge asked if she understood the charges, she simply nodded. The prosecution painted her as a woman consumed by jealousy, claiming she had planned the attack after discovering the affair. They showed photos of the crime scene, played the 911 call, and replayed every painful detail of that night. The defense told a different story. They said Danielle acted in a sudden moment of emotional collapse, driven by betrayal so deep it clouded every rational thought. Her attorney read her note aloud in court. "I believed in you both." The room went silent. Even the judge lowered his eyes. Psychologists testified that Danielle had suffered a psychological break triggered by extreme emotional trauma. The jury listened, but the evidence of 2 lives lost weighed heavily on every face in the room. When Danielle finally took the stand, she didn't beg for sympathy. She said, "I loved them both, but I couldn't live with what I saw. I wish I had walked away." Her words broke the courtroom. Some cried, some turned away. But no one could deny the truth in her voice. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict that would echo across the country. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to read the verdict. Cameras clicked, reporters leaned forward, and Danielle stood still, her hands clasped in front of her. The jury found her guilty of 2 counts of manslaughter, not first-degree murder. The courtroom gasped. Some called it mercy, others called it injustice. Danielle showed no reaction. She simply nodded, tears rolling down her face. The judge sentenced her to 30 years in prison. As she was led away, she turned once toward the audience. Her mother was there, crying quietly, whispering that she still loved her. Danielle smiled faintly before disappearing behind the courtroom doors. Inside the prison, Danielle became known for her calm nature and quiet faith. Guards said she rarely spoke, often sitting alone during recreation hours, staring out at the sky as if she were searching for something she had lost forever. Outside, the story continued to haunt the town. The house where it happened was sold, then abandoned. No one wanted to live there. Neighbors said that every time it rained, they could still hear echoes of that night. The case became a study in emotional collapse and betrayal. It raised questions about what the human heart can endure before it finally breaks. Even today, true crime followers still argue over one question. Was Danielle Moore a victim of unbearable pain, or a woman who let heartbreak turn to horror? Danielle Moore remains behind bars to this day, serving out her sentence at the Ohio Reformatory for Women. She rarely speaks to the media, but in one interview, she said she still dreams of that night. She said every time she closes her eyes, she hears the sound of silence after it was all over. The story of Danielle Moore is not just about betrayal. It is about how love, when twisted by secrets, can destroy everything in its path. It reminds us that sometimes the truth is not what sets you free. It is what breaks you. If you made it this far, tell me what you think. Was Danielle a victim of emotional destruction? Or did she go too far? Comment your thoughts below and tell me where you're watching from. And if you want more true stories like this, subscribe now. Every week we uncover real crimes, hidden motives, and the moments that change lives forever. This is the story of Danielle Moore, the woman who lost everything in one moment of truth. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.